Good evening and welcome to another edition of the Pam Bowden Show. I'm your host, Matt DeLong, and along with head coach Pam Bowden, we're going to come back and bring you this past week in IPFW women's basketball, plus look ahead to a big weekend here at the Hilliard Gate Sports Center. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
The college basketball season is underway for 1994-95, and the Great Lakes Valley Conference has been rated by some as the toughest of the NCAA Division II conferences. Join Coach Andy Piazza and me, Matt DeLong, to get a closer look at the IPFW team and this year's competition.
Welcome back to the Pam Bowden Show. Again, I'm your host, Matt DeLong. And Coach, it was a split last week. You had what is generally called another tough road trip here in the Great Lakes Valley Conference. And you're starting to get involved into that now. So maybe your impressions on the trip overall, what it's meant for your team. And we're going to get into the St. Joe's game, which was a loss, a marathon game, 84 fouls total in that game, or actually maybe a few more. We'll check that, which is just amazing. And then the team regroups and it comes out with a big win at Lewis. So first of all, your thoughts on the weekend.
Well, first of all, I'm looking for the easy road trip. I haven't found it yet, but as soon as we do, we'll pull two easy ones off, I think, somewhere down the road. I'm just not sure where it's at. But as far as St. Joe's, yeah, it was a marathon. It went 3 hours. There were, I think, 59 fouls and 86 free throws attempted during the game. So it was a real start-and-stop game, real inconsistent. So it was real, for our kids, it was real hard for us to get in the momentum and the flow of the game because it was always starting and stopping, and it's just a real inconsistent game for us. St.
Joe's comes out with the win, and that was Thursday, last Thursday night, 106 to 86. It was 44 to 37. At the half, so the team finds themselves down but not out going in, into the first half. So evidently they were looking okay on the road. You're down 7 points, certainly not out of it.
No, at halftime we were still in the game, and I think as it went, because of our injuries and missing an extra player or two, one, we haven't had the depth on the bench coming off, and the extra time from the subs that we've needed, along with the fact that there was a time during the game where we were within 9 points, but to get there, we had gotten down to about 22 points, had tried to press full court, and we had actually gotten back in the game about 9 points, but we really just, I think, ran out of gas.
Well, and another factor is that you had 4 girls foul out in that game, and you look at the 4 who did. Leah Sheets, freshman, has been playing just some excellent basketball for you. Of course, Jenny Newhart then had 4 fouls, and I'm just going down the list. So you're concerned with that. Probably have to spell her a little bit, even though she did play 34 minutes. Tara Mazzillo fouls out, your post player. Wendy Recker fouls out, point guard, leading the conference in assists. And Lindy Jones fouls out, leading the conference in scoring, and really almost leading the conference in almost every category. So you got to look at that and say, the deck has been stacked against me, at least on this night, and I have to regroup and just try to recover for Lewis, because that's certainly something that I would think would leave a sour spot in your stomach.
Well, it was a real hard game for the kids, mainly because they just, one time we'd be straight up in the air, the next time, you could wrap around. And there just wasn't the consistency there for them to determine how aggressive they could be or not be. and it really made a big difference for our kids. And it just got to a point where, it's like, I tried this and I got the foul, I tried that, and now I'm sitting the bench. So it was just a real hard game for us. It was a very fast-paced game in between the whistles and going to the line. But it was just a real hard game for him to play and to have any consistency at all, and which I think shows in our shooting percentage. We shot 30%, which is very low for us. Having 4 kids on the bench out of the starting group and having the 5th one with 4 fouls sure doesn't help.
And then you look at St. Joe's, and really they played a very good basketball game for them, and they deserve that credit.
Yep.
And just to go back to maybe poor officiating or whatnot, it wasn't one-sided. And
No.
I think that a lot of times you go into a school like St. Joe's and you would worry about, wow, small school, small town, but it was really kind of bad both ways, and St. Joe's really did play a pretty good basketball game here.
Yeah, we can't take anything away from St. Joe's. They really worked hard, and they had a little bit more depth than we did, so they were able to, push the ball up the court where we couldn't, and going from 9 points to 22 points or 20 points is real easy in a game like that. So because it's just so fast-paced. So.
Then we're going to talk about the lack of depth here in just a few minutes, and I think an area that points that out very clear is to just look at the scoring in this basketball game. And you've got foul trouble. You're having to bring people in and do a lot of substitutions. Lindy Jones ends with 14 points. It's one of her lower outputs this season. 14 points, 5 rebounds. Wendy Riker leads the team with 19 points. Tara Mazzillo, 13 points, 11 rebounds, still in 31 minutes there. Jenny Newhart, another good performance. She's really been putting it together lately, 18 points and 9 rebounds. And then Leah Sheets ends with 14 points. Now, below that, and again, with all the foul problems, you're only producing 8 points off the bench. And that is where some recent injuries really may have cost you this game.
Right, especially with Dottie Porch being out, we can get another 15 to 20 minutes out of her and rest some of our other kids in rotation, and it just is taking our toll on us physically at the end of the games, against good teams. So, the last 4 games, like we talked earlier, we've been missing one post player that gets quite a bit of time. It was Jenny Newhart, and now it's been, Dottie. So that's really, hurt our team. And
Dottie is averaging 10.5 points on the season, and certainly look forward to getting her back here pretty soon into the lineup. And
we're hoping.
Yeah. So we'll keep our thoughts with her. So now, Coach, let's move on to Lewis. The team's a little bit down. You drive back in the middle of the night. You got the next day to prepare Friday. What do you tell the girls to get them ready for Lewis, which is again, it's another long trip. You could easily lose your focus on the way to Romeoville, Illinois, but it seems like the team came out and really kind of took the challenge and ran away with it.
Yeah, I think that was the first part, like you said, the challenge. Even though we've lost a few games, I think our kids had to come out and get a win against Lewis. I think if they wouldn't have, I think we'd be in a real sad situation, because I think we could lose another game coming up Thursday and Saturday again, just because of not being able to pull off that win. It was a good win for us, but our problem right now is that we just don't have the depth in our bench and the experience, and we tried to gain some of that early in the season, but we weren't able to get enough of what we really needed to accomplish during the preseason with the non-conference games, because so many of them were so close.
We're going to come back and we're going to finish talking about Lewis here in just a few moments. But in that game, Lindy Jones finishes with 35 points. She played 35 minutes, and she's really been playing 40 minutes. So we'll talk about what Lindy might have been able to do had she stayed in the game a little bit longer. Talking about possible school records, may not be too far out of reach for her. Stay tuned. We'll be right back in just a few moments.
Check it out!
The campus has it all.
Learn it, or work it, or play it, just do it. It's a cool place. Call now! Go to work, go to school, go ahead.
In our ever-expanding world, we need a reliable source, one that addresses important aspects of our daily lives and provides us with useful information. Health and Home Report is that source, with stories on how to get the most for your money, where to go for a great vacation, hot fashion tips, what's happening in the world of arts and entertainment, and the latest medical breakthroughs. Health and Home Report provides a world of information.
Welcome back to the show. Again, I'm your host, Matt DeLong, with Coach Pam Bowden, and we were talking about the Lewis game. Took us to 2-5 in the GLVC, and certainly not an acceptable number, but to remember, it could easily be at this point in the conference with one, maybe two losses. That's how close things have been.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully everything's going to kind of switch around, and we're going to get into the Kentucky Wesleyan game and the Southern Indiana game as we go on into the segment. But let's finish up on the Lewis game here real quick. It was a 101-78 win for IPFW, and the kind of thing really where you controlled the game throughout, but there were still some tense moments that you see, some potential problems, down the road with the team. Right.
I think one of our main problems is that, we're just having trouble coming off the bench and doing what we need to do to maintain a lead. We had made some substitutions over a couple-minute span, and we went from 22 to 14 real quick. And kids out coming off the bench have to learn to maintain that lead. Otherwise, I'm going to have to just sub one in at a time, and that's going to take away from, the experience all around that some of those kids can get.
Okay. Again, the same 5 girls in double figures, and again, 8 points produced, by the rest of the bench.
Yeah, and that's a real downfall for us because, you're getting some consistency at X level, and then all of a sudden you're jumping down real quick to another level, and we've got to be able to try to balance that out a little bit more and bring the bench up a little bit more so that we maintain the intensity and the level of play that we were at.
Let's go through the huge positive side to this, though, which was the scoring of the starting 5. Again, very consistent. All the way around, rebounding, cutting down on turnovers, which I think out of the starting group is a huge plus. Point in fact, Leah Sheets just last week, we were talking about her ability to come out and score. She had a couple good games, 19, 20 points, and you said if we could just cut down on those turnovers, well, against Lewis she has 1. So that's got to be just a great positive for you. She also finishes with 15 points and 6 rebounds. Jenny Newhart finishes with 14 points and 9 rebounds, another very consistent outing for her. 14 points and 8 rebounds for Tara Mazzillo. Again, Tara is somebody that maybe got 1 or 2 minutes of playing time in the past. So she's really blossoming
she sure has.
into a fine post player here in the conference. Wendy Recker, 15 points, 4 rebounds, 9 assists. She's one of the top assist getters, and you'll probably point that out in the nation. She ranks number 10 right now. And then your All-America candidate, Lindy Jones, 35 points. It was a career high for her. 6 rebounds. She was 10 of 10 from the free throw line, and had a number of assists herself. You were telling me when you got back, you said, geez, if we would have known what the school scoring record was, we probably would have left her in to go for it.
Yeah, I think it would have been an exciting, I think, record for her to break, especially when it's Lisa Miller that holds it. So for Lindy, I think it would have been a great accomplishment. And
the record is 40 points. By the way, Lisa Miller says that back in 1991-92 season. And I think probably Lisa's scoring record might be a little bit out of reach unless somebody comes along and averages about 25 points a game for the next few years. But anyway, it would have been a nice record. But I think Lindy's probably the kind of player that could pull that out. Almost, it seems, when she wants. She could score at will.
Yeah, she's just a real good player. Against St. Joe's, I think she just really struggled. I think with the inconsistency of what was going on, kids start playing head games with themselves, and they're really unsure of what they can and can't do, and what's, if I drive, last time they didn't call the foul, and, so I have a missed shot and not going to the line and things like that. So that kinds of adds to what we can and can't do, even offensively.
So the mental side of the game, kind of coming out, and how do you deal with that as a coach when the players, they have the ability, they just can't put it together?
Well, you just have to keep, I think, showing them the positive sides and keep trying to teach and keep building that confidence so that it isn't a question and there's never a question in their mind. And I think maybe a Tara Missoula is a good example of that. Somebody that didn't play very much, and we've really tried to build the confidence, and as we keep going through games, she's getting better and better in different areas.
Tara's a kind of a post player too that you see more in the men's game, I think, these days, where she's multidimensional in the fact that she can go outside and shoot, and she can shoot very consistently outside.
I think if Tara works really hard this summer, I think she can really develop the three-point shot as we go through the summer and in towards next year. She just really, she can dribble, she can drive, she can post up, and if she can add the other dimension as far as the three-point shot, I think that she's just really going to be a real threat in the next 2 years.
Well, Tara's a 50% field goal shooter, and she's also shooting 75% from the line. Right now, Coach, let me get your assessment of where the team is at this point as far as the free throw shooting. You really stressed that early in the season. You really wanted to be around the 80% mark as a team. So why don't you assess where the team stands now, because that was a point of emphasis when we first began talking, way back when in December.
I think what has happened is our mental concentration has really gone down, and we've done some things in practice where we're going to run as a team, and if you're missing the front ends of 1-on-1s and things like that, we're going to keep track of those things. So at the beginning of the year, we started out real strong, and then we had a real low when we got to the beginning of the conference. And the other night we shot 94%. So if we can keep that kind of mentality up over the next few games, maybe we can get it back up there. But it's just, I really think a lack of mental concentration on the free throw shooting this year.
What generally would you look for out of a team coached by Pam Bowden to shoot for the season?
I would hope we were shooting about 75% from the line realistically, but it's nice to aim towards at least, the 80s. And
right now the team is shooting 70%. From the field, though, you're shooting 47%, and that's almost acceptable.
Yeah, I'd like to see us, a little closer to 50. Here and there it can make a difference. As long as we can be consistent game in and game out with the kinds of shots we're taking and the percentage, if we can keep the consistency with the percentage, that'll really help us.
Okay, again, IPFW currently stands at 8-7, 2-5 in the Great Lakes Valley Conference. We want you to stay tuned. We're going to come back in the last segment, talk about this weekend. We got a couple home games. They're going to be here on Channel 6, but we want to see you in person at the Hilliard Gate Sports Center on Thursday and Saturday, Kentucky Wesleyan and Southern Indiana. Stay tuned. We'll be right back to talk about those games coming up. Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Matt DeLong. Coach, big weekend coming up here. A very pivotal weekend for the Great Lakes Valley Conference play to either get back in the race or bow out of the race, quite honestly. And you're going to have a stern test with Kentucky Wesleyan on Thursday night. You start at 6 o'clock. And tell us what you know about Kentucky Wesleyan. They come in, and I'll point this out, at 7-8. You're tied with them at 2-5 in the GLVC. And whatever happens there, you know, you still have third-ranked nationally Southern Indiana coming in. They're 15-0, and they're 7-0 in the Great Lakes Valley Conference. So how do you approach the Kentucky Wesleyan game?
Well, I think it's a real challenge for us to, one, get the winning back home and not allow somebody to come into our place and beat us, for one. And so I think it's a real challenge for the kids to get ready mentally and do what they need to do and take care of business, as far as Kentucky Wesleyan is concerned. As far as Southern Indiana, I think that's a big challenge, and that'd be a great win if we could get it. And it's just a matter of how hard we want to work, for one, and how willing we are to discipline ourselves to run the offense and be patient and to do the things we need to defensively.
We were looking through the rosters earlier, actually separately, but I think the point has been made by many people is you look at Kentucky Wesleyan's roster and you look at Southern Indiana's roster, they've got 8 players. And, I mean, we're concerned with depth on our team.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look at these two teams, and in Southern Indiana in particular, with the youth, and I'm sure we'll get into that and talk about that in just a few minutes, where they have at least 2 freshmen starting and,
Mm-hmm.
and a couple more contributing. Well, they only have 8 players total, and they're so tough. How can you use that to your advantage against Kentucky Wesleyan?
Well, I think we have a better chance to use it to our advantage against Kentucky Wesleyan because hopefully they're not going to go as deep as a Southern Indiana, even with the smaller amounts of players. But I think it really is going to be a plus for us in that aspect. But we're still, you know, struggling ourselves, so I don't know if we really have an advantage or not. I think we're a better team. I don't know if we've always have shown it, but I do really feel that we're a better team than Kentucky Wesleyan.
Well, quickly, Kentucky Wesleyan is going to be led by Jill Burness. She was an All-American volleyball player. She comes in and she's having a great season for the Lady Panthers right now. 17.3 points a game and 10.6 rebounds a game. Looks like it's set up to be another great matchup in the post for Jenny Newhard. Tara Mazzillo will probably get some time on Burness, but the way those two have been playing, they're actually stepping their game up.
Right. And we really need Jen and Tara to do what they need to do offensively and defensively, but I think we need to really concentrate. These kids have to keep a player like this off the boards so they don't get the easy second shot offensively.
Carrie Moore then will be right there on the front line as well for Kentucky Wesleyan. She's averaging 14.2 points, 7.3 rebounds, and is another one of their tough down-low players.
Yeah, and that may cause some problems for us a little bit, especially if we get into some foul trouble. We know that we're not going to have Dottie this week, so that means that we're going to go with Leah again, shifting back and forth from the perimeter to the post. And if we get in foul trouble, that could really hurt us in the inside part of the game.
So that's Friday night, and either way this comes out, you still have one of the top teams in the country coming in here on Saturday, which is Southern Indiana. Southern Indiana, I don't think does anything to trick you.
No.
They have a very solid team, but it's a team that actually most of your girls have seen before and really played very well against before. What do you think the difference is between this Southern Indiana team that last year had the Player of the Year? They were very tough. Lost it in a couple big games, and now they come in. They've got youth. What makes them 15-0 now? I mean, it doesn't seem like the dynamics should have changed that much.
Well, if I were to look at it just from the outside, and I really don't know the ins and outs of their program, but I think with some of the players that they had last year, I think there were 3 real key players, and I don't know if their bench was as balanced. And I think their bench this year is a little bit more balanced, and I think they're really focused on what they're trying to accomplish. I think, you come and you win, you're 5-0, and you don't have that loss, and you're like, okay, we're going after another one. I think it just the intensity keeps getting better and better all the time. If they would have been 4-1, it might not be the same.
So they come in 15-0, 7-0 in the conference, first place, again ranked number 3, and they're led by a certain All-America candidate. She's only a sophomore, Leanne Freeland. She's averaging, she's fighting actually with Lindy Jones, probably at this point for a possible Player of the Year in the conference honors. I mean, they're both scoring machines, but she's averaging 23.7. And Lindy leads the conference in just conference games, and she's second behind Leanne in overall games. 23.7 points, 8.5 rebounds, and just really the kind of player that can scare you.
Right, and I think that's going to be great for them down the road the next couple of years. They have somebody that has that much talent at this age. You know, we're lucky to have Lindy around for one more year. We need to have the Leah Sheets step up and do that kind of thing next year to add to our program. And so, you know, whether Lindy or this other player ends up with the top honors in the conference, you know, that's great. I really don't know so much if the year's going to matter, who's going to get it or not. I think it's going to come down to whose team's got a better record and, you know, looking at the stats from boards to assists to turnovers. The whole line, I think, is going to really be an outcome in that decision.
But Freeland, another 6-footer, another tough night for your post people.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a real tough night for us, especially because we don't have the depth, and hopefully we can, you know, not come out and, you know, start hacking away and really set a good tone initially at the beginning of the game of how we're going to play it, and try to keep her tone down just a little bit and not let her get off, and, you know, think that she can score her 17 points a game so easily.
Eileen Weber, also somebody else to watch out for Southern Indiana. She averages 14.8, and only one other in double figures is Missy Hart as their point guard at 12.3 points a game. Coach, what does it mean to the Lady Dons, then, real quick in conclusion? What does it mean to come out of here with 2 wins this weekend?
Oh, I think it would be a great accomplishment for us. It would give us some real positiveness for the next few games that we have coming up.
Okay, Thursday night, IPFW takes on Kentucky Wesleyan at the Hilliard Gate Sports Center. It's going to be at 6:05 will be the tip-off on that. And then Saturday night, IPFW takes on number 3 Southern Indiana here at the Hilliard Gate Sports Center. We want to see you in the Gates Center, so please make it a point in your day to come out and support the IPFW Lady Dons. 6:05 on Saturday. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week. Good evening and welcome to this edition of the Pam Bowden Show. We're going to be talking about IPFW women's basketball this evening. We're going to talk about what happened last week with Southern Indiana and Kentucky Wesleyan, and then look forward to this week. It's Bellarmine and Kentucky State. Kentucky State on Thursday, Bellarmine on Saturday. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
This is the increasingly competitive world we live in, and this is the country we want ahead of the competition. These are the people we'll be depending on to keep this country ahead of the competition. These are the colleges and universities we're relying on for the people we're depending on to keep this country ahead of the competition. So if you want America to stay number one in the world, do something about it. Give to the college of your choice.
Welcome back to the Pam Bowden Show. I'm your host, Matt DeLong, and joining me now is Coach Pam Bowden. And Coach, last week it was the venture down south. It's a long trip down to southern Indiana. You played them Thursday, and then it's just only about an hour drive over to Kentucky Wesleyan, Owensboro, Kentucky. But I think the trip is probably got a lot of positives in some ways, some negatives in some ways with the distance that's involved. But real quick, why don't you just recap, what that kind of a trip does for your basketball team, and then we'll talk about the games here in just a few minutes.
Well, I think something that's real important for us down the road is that we're able to try to, I guess, get the understanding of being able to win on the road. And I thought that we played well in both games, the USI and the Kentucky Wesleyan game. But I felt in the USI there was about 3 minutes that we struggled a little bit. And we lost about 13 points in that 3-minute stretch. And that's pretty much, I think, what really hurt us in the game. The rest of the game, I thought we played very well. I thought we did some really positive, real good things that were very positive in the end of the game against USI. We handled the last, I would say, 2 minutes very well, and did some very positive things that maybe we haven't done earlier in the year. And so from that aspect, I thought there were some real positive things, even though we ended up losing that game.
That game, well, let's just talk about it. It was last Thursday. Sorry we don't have any video from that, but USI, who had been ranked pretty much all year, I think they got as high as number 3, where we defeated them and helped knock them out of that position. But they've lost 4 conference games. They're still tied for first place, or just percentage points out, I think. But they are one of the upper echelon. 20-4 on the season now, and so they were 18-4 going into the game with you, and just very strong. Have probably a first-team All-American in Leanne Freeland, and looking down, it seemed like you were able to contain them, or contain her especially, but some other people got a little bit out of hand, and I'm sure we'll touch on that. But the final ends up 77-72, and like you said, there was that 3-minute stretch that was really the story of the game, and that's really kind of been the way the season's gone. In a lot of tight games, there's been that little stretch where teams have been able to push it out.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that's still the inexperience and not the total understanding of everything that we need done and how we need it to be done. But in this game, we out-rebounded them. Hart had 30 points, and that really hurt us because she hit several three-point shots that were very key, in key moments, and we just have to be able to just put it together. And anytime you have a breakdown like that, it's going to cause you problems. And
you were kind of playing that small rotation again, and against a team with their talent, you really got to try to keep certain players on the floor at all times. But leading the way for you was Lindy Jones with 17 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. Another, well-rounded game for her. It's a few points below her 40-point effort the last time you played Southern Indiana, but that just kind of says maybe the tempo was a little bit different in this game.
It was a little bit different than the first game, mainly because it was really, the first game was a real, push it up court, run and gun.
Yeah, 104-94, we won that game.
Yeah, in this game it wasn't quite like that, and it was a little slower tempo. People were trying to take a little bit more time to get a better shot every time down the floor than they did the first game. But we haven't shot especially well on the road, and I don't know if we're just so comfortable in our own gym that we just seem to struggle a little bit more. But with next year's schedule, we're going to find out real quick how to play on the road.
Yeah, you went in against Southern Indiana trailing 44-33 at the half, and your team really hadn't been down very much in quite a long time, if down at all, at halftime. So what was the reaction with an 11-point deficit?
Well, we were up actually about 3 to 5 points most of the first half until the last 3 minutes, and basically I just wanted our kids to do what they needed to do, and we've got to quit having these mental lapses, and I just really felt that they needed to do it on their own, and you know, I didn't call a timeout and try to settle them down. I really felt that they need to decide that, and they need to, I guess, decide that they're going to do it and take control of the game instead of somebody bailing them out all the time. So we talked about that at halftime, and I said you basically have two choices. You can go out there and continue to, you know, not do things the way we've showed you, or you can go out there and work hard and get yourselves back in the game, and that's what they did. And unfortunately, we fell short a little bit.
Dottie Porch also had an excellent game.
Yeah, she played a great defensive game on their Freeland in the post, and you know, she did some really good things and held Freeland way under her norm, and a couple other kids got to play on Freeland also, and they did a very good job, and I think that was a real key for us, but we just didn't do it out in the perimeter defensively. Yeah,
Leanne Freeland, who Coach was referring to, scored 50 points against IPFW the last meeting. She's also averaging 26 points a game, I believe. Mm-hmm. And I think also double digits in rebounds. And while she was still able to get 15 rebounds, 11 of them were defensive. And but she was held to 14 points in 36 minutes. And then Dottie retaliates with 14 points of her own and 10 rebounds. It was a pretty good game.
Yeah, that's a very good game for Dottie, and that's what, you know, we need her to do all the time, and, you know, just show that consistency. And if we can get our post players to get double-doubles or to get very close to that, then down the road we're going to do some good things. Okay,
then Coach, you kind of get out of there. I don't know what's the mood of the team. You still have one more game left on this road trip. You know, you're playing a team that's been nationally ranked, but I'm sure that you felt, you know, when this game was over, that, you know, everybody can look at opportunities and see where things should have been different. So it's a split on the season series. Now you go to Kentucky Wesleyan, and preparing for this, I mean, this is a team that can beat anybody. They're the kind of team that kind of they lurk back in the background, and then they knock somebody off.
Yeah, the thing with Kentucky Wesleyan, they're one of those teams that they've been real up and down all season, but they actually play a little better at home than they do on the road, and their shooting percentage is better at home than on the road. And they're very similar to us in that aspect. But, you know, they've got two very good post players that I think, you know, they're young, and they're, you know, with Bernesh, she's a young kid, and she's a sophomore this year. She's going to do some great things down the road, and she's doing some very good things right now, and I think that, you know, we couldn't overlook her or their inside game. And, you know, we tried not to do that. And even though their record isn't, you know, great, and they're a little below us as far as the standings and things like that, I don't think you ever can underestimate a team, especially when they're at home.
You know, of course, IPFW now is 15-10 on the season and 8-8 in the GLVC. But we'll go over the Kentucky Wesleyan game when we come back here in just a few moments, and also talk about some other things that came up, and maybe not get into too great a detail, but it certainly affected the Lady Dons against Kentucky Wesleyan. It was a total team effort in that win. So why don't you stay tuned? We'll come back, talk about Kentucky Wesleyan IPFW when we return.
Check it out!
The campus has it all.
Learn it, or work it, or play it, just do it. It's a cool place. Call now! Go to work, go to school, go ahead.
In our ever-expanding world, we need a reliable source, one that addresses important aspects of our daily lives and provides us with useful information. Health and Home Report is that source, with stories on how to get the most for your money, where to go for a great vacation, hot fashion tips, what's happening in the world of arts and entertainment, and the latest medical breakthroughs. Health and Home Report provides a world of information.
Pam Bowden Show again. I'm your host, Matt DeLong, and Coach, we were talking about Kentucky Wesleyan. And it's part of that trip where you have the game Thursday night, then you have Friday to recover. And there was a lot of stuff that went on in a negative way, but those are things that you have to deal with. And it all started, I believe, with an accident in practice that will probably have your heart in your throat there for a while. You know, worrying and it's one of those things, and you have to carry on and move on. And then you had some other problems that I'll give you the leeway to go into in any way that you want. But the fact is you played with 6 players against Kentucky Wesleyan. Yeah,
we did. Friday, I guess, when we were in practice, we had 2 kids collide, and Jenny Newhart and Bobby Thompson collided during practice. And one was on offense, one was on defense, and Jen just turned in, and Bobby was trying to catch up to her on defense, and they sort of collided heads, and Jen ended up with a nice bruise and big bump on the side of her head, and Bobby ended up with 12 stitches in her forehead. And at first, you know, it was sort of a scary situation because, you know, Jen was sort of stunned a little bit, and, you know, Bobby having just a nice gash on her head.
Just anything in the head, in the vicinity of the head, is much concern.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to take any chances, so, you know, we called Mike Gale and got their information and took him to the hospital, double-checked to make sure that nobody had any concussions, and, you know, if they did, then, you know, they knew what they needed to do just from the doctor's response and everything. And I just wanted to be a little cautious with that, not thinking that Jen was, you know, too hurt, but, you know, we don't want to overlook anything, and then all of a sudden we had to take her into the emergency room at 3 in the morning or anything like that. So, but they all checked out, and Bobby ended up with 12 stitches, and, you know, both of them were, you know, had headaches and stuff like that. So it was a pretty scary situation because I really didn't know if either one of them were going to be able to play the next day. And, you know, even if Jen could even start, you know, just not sure if she was going to have a concussion or not. So it's a little scary.
So then things kind of picked up from there and resulted in your decision to have a few people sit out the next game. And sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, we had a couple disciplinary problems over the weekend. And so my belief is that you need to take care of them and nip it right in the butt right away. And just, you know, take care of and try to teach the kids what's right and what we need to do to be I guess, a #1 contender in this league. And if we're to do those things, and we need to do the right things as I guess, team members, and act in the right way and represent the university in a positive manner. And sometimes we make mistakes, and we've got to pay our dues and get on.
And so let's just get right to the game then. You've got well, I'll just run down the starting lineup, and I'll just list all 6 people that did play because they all contributed.
They did.
And quite honestly, without whomever comes off the bench and whomever plays, then you're hurt in this game. So you bring Annie Recker in to start at one of the guards, and I would presume probably a 2-guard. The way that you're running actually a 3-guard offense, you're kind of forced into it. Yep. And Annie ends up playing 35 minutes, so she probably played for a freshman, as much as you probably got as much as you possibly could have out of her in her initial collegiate start. But she finishes with 5 points, has 3 rebounds and assists, only 2 turnovers, which is a very positive statistic. And when you throw a freshman out there in a guard position, her sister Wendy Recker then starts at the point, and you have some production problems out of her that night. She didn't quite get it. Then you also have Lindy Jones, Leah Sheets, Jenny Newhart, which are the bulk of your offensive load. And coming off the bench was Amy Ross, whom you know has been hurt most of the year, and she's just now starting to get back into the flow of things. And actually had I believe 10 rebounds in a game just a couple weeks ago. So she got in. She proved that she can play. Then her offensive skills are still a little bit suspect. So they're going to be developed. So there's your 6 players. And what are you feeling going into this?
I'm about feeling like I could throw up by the first part of the game. But I don't know, I think sometimes you have to stick to your guns with what you believe. And, you know, I just hope we make it through without really embarrassing ourselves. And, you know, I walked in the locker room at the end of the game, and I told our kids, I said, I really didn't believe that we were going to win that game. I mean, I just don't know how we did it. because Jen's fouled out of a lot of games and gotten some real bad foul trouble. Annie Recker probably played more minutes in that one game than she has all season. And, the thing that really impressed me is she came out of the, at the beginning of the game and she hit a 3 right away. I mean, she was the first shot, she hit the 3, and just sort of set the tempo for us. And, she did some good things. There was one time where she was racing Leah down the court. She goes, "I'm going to beat you down there." They were racing, and then she got in the huddle with them.
During the game?
During the game, she said that. She got in the huddle with them, I guess, and she told them that, my job's to motivate you guys. And she just did. I really have a lot of respect for her in the fact that, one, she understood her role, and she did a great job for us when we needed it. And I think sometimes kids overlook that. Maybe I don't play a lot or this or that. And I'm sitting at the bench, but they contribute every day in practice, and what they do, may in turn, I guess, improve our starters. And they may be at a time where, like in this situation, that they have to come through and do what they need to do, and in this case these 2 kids did that.
Now
And
you
I'm
have
real pleased.
you have 3 girls really that are pretty used to playing 40 minutes a game or thereabouts, and you got that out of them. Wendy Recker, Lindy Jones, and Leah Sheets. But
Right.
Jenny Newhart's production in this game was phenomenal. I mean, she's got a bad headache for one, but she comes out, scores 24 points, 7 rebounds. She did foul out right at the end of the game,
Right.
but luckily it was late, and just a super game for her.
Yeah, it was a super game. It was really hard because she had a couple of quick fouls in the beginning, so we played Amy, and we were just rotating a couple people just long enough to give rest, and I'm like, "Jen, there's 6 minutes left on the clock. Can you go in and not foul, get your 3rd foul?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'll try." She went in for 5 minutes of the 6, pulled her out just so that she wouldn't get that 3rd one. I was a little cautious on that. And, helped add to the scoring again there. And, we start her in the second half, and we keep going with what we have. And the thing that at the end of the game that was real crucial is Jen did foul out, and we have Amy Ross taking the ball out, who, as a freshman, we're counting big time on her not making a mistake down there. And we did some real good things. I was real pleased.
Yeah, well, we're going to finish up talking about Kentucky Western.
All
I'm
right.
sure there's a few more areas that we could touch on when we come back there in just a few moments. We'll talk about the production of Leah Sheets and Lindy Jones as well. So why don't you stay tuned. When we come back, we'll finish talking about that. Then we'll get up into this week. Got Kentucky State on Thursday, Bellarmine on Saturday. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Back to the Pam Bowden Show. Again, I'm your host, Matt DeLong, and joining me, I guess she has joined me a few segments ago, but Pam Bowden's here with me. And Pam, we were talking a few minutes ago about the Kentucky Wesleyan game. It ends up being a 71-66 win. I think we went through everything. We didn't tell people what the actual score was, but your team improves to 15-10, 8-8 in the conference. And whereas a couple weeks ago it looked like you might have an outside shot at the NCAA tournament. And it would have been the second time in 3 years, or the second time in 4 years that IPFW's made it. Things didn't quite work out, but it seems like the team stayed motivated enough to go out and had enough pride in what they did to go out and really fight.
Yeah, they did. And, just especially when we're down to 6 players, I think that it just goes to show, I think, sometimes that kids really can do, I guess you can do anything you put your mind to it. And, they just did a great job, and I'm really pleased that, they were able to just to do the things that they needed to do to get the win and accomplish what they needed to. You know, I think for us, we're still very young, and you know, we're going to make mistakes mentally, mainly because, you know, they have to learn what I want at the end of the game and how I want to handle things as far as pressure situations. And you know, I think we're starting to come around to that, even though we have a couple lapses here and there, but we're getting better and better. And you know, I think that there's a lot for us to do next year, and you know, hopefully we can get a couple key recruits in that can come in and step in and do what we needed, you know, to add to the program.
We want to talk a little bit about Bellarmine and Kentucky State here in just a few minutes, but we'd be remiss if we didn't point out that Leah Sheets also played just a great game.
Yeah, she did.
She's just adding on, really, to her I don't know, I guess what we want her to be in the future.
Yep.
And she's doing it quite well. She's not just a scorer, she's a rebounder as well. 18 points, 12 rebounds. And then Lindy Jones, a little bit off on the shot. She seems to be very aware of that, and once she gets through that, but 6 of 17 from the field, she still had 16 points, and grabs 4 rebounds, hits all of her free throws, which were very key in this game, by the way. You missed free throws. You ended up 18 of 22, but you miss a couple of those, and it's a completely different game with tired players.
It was really only a 3-point game. We actually, there were 6 seconds left on the clock, and we had to bring the ball inbounds. And I was more concerned just getting it in and trying to stay away from anybody, and so that they couldn't foul us. And we actually got a breakaway, and Lindy hit a layup at the other end. So really it was only a 3-point game, and it really wasn't decided until after we got it to half court that we were okay.
And, well, Lindy ends up with 16 points, 7 rebounds, and what is certainly an All-American season for her.
Yeah, and the thing that's, you know, she's feeling like right now she's in a little bit of a shooting slump, and you know, maybe she just doesn't shoot as well on the road, and you know, she's just got to really stay focused on what she's trying to do, and maybe do some other things when she's not so on. But you know, it's really impressive when you can have a kid like Leah Sheets come through and, you know, hit double-doubles, and you know, at her age and where she is right now, I mean, I think she has a lot of potential for the future.
So again, that game was 71-66 was the final. So now, Coach, you come into a couple games where there's one game that you should win. There's one game that some people would say you should lose. So it's the kind of weekend, again, that should be able to motivate the Lady Dons pretty well. First off, it's Kentucky State. And we say you should win because of Kentucky State's reputation, but I think you and I both know that this is the kind of team that, again, like Kentucky Wesleyan, can beat anybody. They've got a D1 transfer in there. They've got some athletes, plain and simple, and they pushed you the first time around at Kentucky State. Now, I would say that this is probably a different IPFW team now.
Yeah, they pressed us, and we just got really flustered at times, and you know, we had a pretty good lead on them at one point, and we just sort of dwindled it away and made it a close game in the end. But you know, I hope that our kids we're at home, and I think we'll shoot a lot better than what we have in the last couple games. And two, I think that it's just we have improved, and we need to do what we're good at. And that's running, and that's you know, running that fast up-tempo game and playing some good defense. Yet, you know, Kentucky State is not a team to overlook. You know, so we need to look at Thursday's game and then Saturday's game, one by one, and go from there.
They're actually a much improved team from the past. They're 8-17 on the season, but they're 2-14 in the conference. One of their wins was over Northern Kentucky, who is still vying for a spot in the NCAA tournament. It's a very good team. Of course, we were able to come out with a slim win at Northern Kentucky the last time, and I think they were actually in the middle of a little slump, but it seems like they've worked through that. And they beat St. Joseph's last weekend, and it's just a wacky conference season, and it's actually a wacky later part of the first half of the conference, and then the whole second half has just been everybody's knocking each other around. But Kentucky State, again, it's nothing to overlook. And then we're going to take a look at Bellarmine, and this is a team that has a national reputation. You're very well aware of that, and it's a team that kind of put it to us. First game of the season.
Yeah, they really killed us on the inside, on their inside game. Our post players weren't moving very well, and weren't doing the things that we needed to do. We look back at the tape, and we made so many mistakes. It's almost like the first St. Joe's game. I mean, we just made so many mistakes over and over, and we didn't give ourselves any opportunity to even be close in the ball game because we made so many mistakes, and that really hurt us. But I think our post play has improved quite a bit over the season, and I'm hoping that we can play with them and be a real threat when we get to the game on Saturday. And we're having our Girl Scout night that night, and hopefully we get a few extra fans in the crowd, and that helps us a little bit more.
Yeah, well, again, it is going to be a special night. This team comes in 16-9, and in the GLVC they're 11-5, and actually they started off pretty shaky, and they've really been able to come back and put it to your team. Now, how much do you think this game will be mental with your ladies? They haven't beaten Bellarmine at least in a couple years, and they know of their reputation.
Yeah, I think that's always in the back of their mind. When we went there, some kids made some comments about, oh, this is what happened last year. We were ahead by X points at halftime, and then we blew it. And, you've got to understand that every day is a different day, and anybody can beat anybody, which is very obvious by some of the, the upsets in the league this year. And, anybody at any given time can beat anybody, and it's just who's on and who's willing to go out there and fight the hardest.
Well, look, Coach, good luck this weekend. It's the final weekend of the season. I think you need a little break and going to take some vacation next week. So congratulations to this point. We'll be back next week, though, and we're going to wrap up the season, talk about everything that's happened in the past, and possibly look forward to the future. Now, this weekend we want to invite you, Lady Dons basketball right here on Channel 6. It's going to be 6 o'clock on Thursday against Kentucky State, 6 o'clock on Saturday against Bellarmine. We really want you to be in the stands trying to get on the remote TV cameras there for Channel 6. So please come on out, 6 o'clock this weekend. Thank you. Good evening and welcome to this final edition of the Pam Bowden Show. I'm your host, Matt DeLong, and we want to thank you for joining us tonight. This will be the last edition of the year. We're going to talk about last week. It was a split. The IPFW women's basketball team finishes up 16-11, and we'll take a look at the season when we return in a moment.
Hello, I'm Arnie Ball. And I'm Tim Hefner. Watch us every Friday evening at 7 p.m. for IPFW Volleyball Highlights.
We'll also describe strategies and fundamentals for all you new volleyball fans.
We may even invite a Volleyball or two to join us on the show, so tune in to us every Friday night at 7 p.m. here on Channel 6.
Good evening once again. I'm your host, Matt DeLong, here on the Pam Bowden Show. Joining me is IPFW women's basketball head coach Pam Bowden. And Pam, the team finishes up 16-11. We're going to talk about last week's games with Bellarmine and Kentucky State. But you know, you got a late jump on the season. There were times when you thought, wow, this might be a great team. There were times when you probably thought you had been dealt the worst hand in the world. But all in all, it turned out to be a pretty good season, especially when you look to what the future might hold.
Well, I think so. I mean, you know, early in the season we lost to Bellarmine by 20. You know, we lose in a very close game, pretty much at the buzzer by 1 point. You know, we played St. Joe's earlier in the season, same thing, got blown away there, played a tight game here. So I think we've really made some progress in the right direction as far as where we need to go and what this program needs to do in the future.
Well, you know, you talk about the progress you make in the second half of the GLVC season. I think that the IPFW fans probably saw as big of improvement as we've ever had here. And, I mean, as far as our entire basketball program, the men's program really started to heat up, and your program really started to heat up. It was a rough first half of the conference season, but you go back to the St. Joseph's game. They blew you out in a very sloppy game, quite honestly. Probably would have been a little bit closer than 20 points. That it ended up 18 points at St. Joseph's. But you come back here, really should have won that game. And it took some very talented play by an all-conference and possibly all-American player from St. Joseph's to pull that one out on a long three-pointer. And then Indianapolis, you're very competitive with them once again. You beat the number 3 team in the country at one point in Southern Indiana, and then play another tight one before dropping that. And it just seems like the improvement has been just steady, and it was coming and coming and coming. And then last week you had another chance at redemption against Bellarmine, and again, just a heartbreaker. Went right down to the end. And how many times has that happened this year, where it's been a 1, 2, 3-point game to where you actually had it in your hands, and then a super talented play by a very good player on the other team takes it away from you?
Well, that's happened quite a few times, and I think that's something that with this team being as young as they are, I mean, we only have 3 juniors, and you know, you look at that, and I think a lot of it has to do with inexperience yet, and I think once we start winning a game or two like that, I think that'll just build our confidence in ourselves that we really understand what's going on and how we need to finish a game. But I've really seen some real good improvements with our kids over the years, and you know, with everything that we've done and how we've progressed through the season. I really don't feel like we started with some, I guess, you know, not as tough teams in the beginning of the, you know, non-conference season. Then we got to the conference, and it was a pretty rude eye-opener for us. And then we've really progressed, and I really don't think that we've really taken any steps backwards. I think we just kept steadily improving, and that's a real good sign for us for next year. And I think that, you know, we've just got to really play off how we finished the year and how well we did do, and, you know, try not to look at some of the losses as some, you know, real negative kinds of things. I think we got to learn from that. And you know, like one thing I know that I'm going to do is go back through all the games that were close and, you know, take maybe the last 5 minutes out of every game and try to see, you know, what could I have done, but, you know, maybe strategy-wise, you know, what kind of last, you know, minute, 30-second plays, whatever it is that, you know, we could have used maybe to, you know, gain some of those wins, and, you know, just try to learn from it from my perspective and, you know, as a team perspective.
Well, you know, you go back to years back when Mike Krzyzewski inherited the Duke team, and they were not a powerhouse at that time, and it took some learning. And by the time that team, his first team, you know, came out, they were national champions, his first, and you know, quite a team. So, not going to put that on you that there has to be a national championship, but the learning process, it seems that there is that room there, and the wonderful thing about it is next year, you get to start with the same players that made those mistakes. They're going to learn by those mistakes, and actually, it's you're very lucky in that regard. Now, before we get to talking about Bellarmine, who the loss was to last Saturday in the final game of the season, let's talk about Kentucky State, because that was a game that your team struggled with the first time around. I believe that was the first conference game, maybe the second, and it was a tight game. And this time, this is a team that's got a D1 transfer on it. That they've got nothing to lose. I think they came in like 4-12 or 4-11 in the conference, maybe not even that good. And but they have talent. They can shoot the ball. They're in streaks, and they had to concern you.
Yeah, it always concerns you when you have a team that you know that all of a sudden they beat Northern Kentucky at the buzzer and double overtime and things like that. And Antonio's done a really good job with that team this year, and they've really improved. And so you never can look past a team like that, because as soon as you think that you're way better than you are, then all of a sudden you pick up a loss against a team like that. The thing that I felt good about playing them this time is that we were at home, and we just shoot a lot better in our gym, and which is evident with Lindy Jones, the performance she had the other night. And I just think that we're a lot more comfortable at home, and we've just got to be able to take that on the road and do some really good things next year with that.
Well, you talked about the performance of Lindy Jones. It seems like we're a broken record sometimes when we come on here, because she has been, especially in the second half of the season, very, very consistent. Like we talked about, I believe a week or two ago, that she felt that her shot was, she was struggling a little bit, and yeah, for her that it may be struggling, but for the average player, and she is above average, and she's going to prove that probably with her postseason awards this year. But she hung in there, kept shooting the ball, and really came out, scored 13 points. It was within the first 5 minutes of the Kentucky State game. It really set the tone for the entire team. She
sure did. It was really neat to see her come out and just all of a sudden just decide that she was going to get out of that slump. And Lindy's a very good player, and I think that she just has so much talent. And I think there's even a lot more talent, that hopefully we can draw out of her from the, our summer workouts and things like that, that it just makes her even a better player for next year and makes it even tougher for everybody to guard her, and just can add that much more to our team next year.
Well, great players do improve every day and with their work in the summer, and a case in point is Lindy had 17 three-pointers in her entire career coming into this year. This year she's one of the top in the Great Lakes region. She has 44 three-pointers, shoots 40%, which isn't bad by any regards from three-point. That's actually like shooting 60% from the field, and has a great season. But real quick before we go to break, we'll just get Lindy's numbers, because she was named GLVC Player of the Week, finally.
Yes.
Finally, after her performance. And we'll also talk about the Bellarmine game coming up. But from the field, she's 12 of 20, 5 of 10 from three-point. That ties her career high for three-pointers made, and 50% from three. I think anybody would take that. She was 10 of 13 from the line. This is all against Kentucky State. 8 rebounds, 5 assists, 0 turnovers, 5 steals in 37 minutes. It's a pretty good day.
It was a dang good day. I'd like a lot more of those days, but.
And after the first 5 minutes, too, Coach, I don't believe Lindy scored until probably
she was
5-6 minutes to go in the half, and she just kind of picked up from there and went on. When we come back, we'll finish up talking about some of the other standouts in the Kentucky State game, talk about the Bellarmine game, and then a little later on, we'll recap the season for you. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
This is the increasingly competitive world we live in, and this is the country we want ahead of the competition. These are the people we'll be depending on to keep this country ahead of the competition. These are the colleges and universities we're relying on, for the people we're depending on to keep this country ahead of the competition. So if you want America to stay #1 in the world, do something about it. Give to the college of your choice.
Check it out!
The campus has it all.
Learn it, work it, play it, just do it. It's a cool place. Call now! Go to work, go to school, go ahead.
Welcome back. We were talking about the Kentucky State game. The final comes out to be 102-85, and Kentucky State, though, I mean, 17 points was the final. I think we might have got up to around 20. Actually, from a fan's perspective, it was a little bit tighter than that. They kept hitting three-pointers at the right time. Now,
Right.
they were 7 of 23, but it was that threat, I think. The one girl, Angie Johnson, who it was very talented. She had 27 points herself, and she's, well, I'll call her a gun. I mean, she was really gunning the ball, but that seemed to be something that had worked, and she had hit a last-second shot, you said, to beat Northern Kentucky, who was in the race anyway, probably right up to the end, such as we were up until a week and a half ago, to get an NCAA tournament. So that it was no fluke, and she does that. But she has 27 points. This is out a couple of assists, but she was 5 of 13 from three. It seemed like they just kind of kept hanging around.
Yeah, that's a scary part about them, and I think you know, even like in a Northern Kentucky game that they played, I mean, I bet you Nancy's just wondered when they were just going to quit. And the one thing I think that they've really developed this year is even though they're maybe not still at the talent level as a lot of other teams in the conference, they don't quit, and they're very physical, and they work real hard. And even the first time when we played them, we were up by 20 in the beginning of the second half, and you know, it became a 4 or 5 point ball game. So you know, they definitely can be a threat on and off during the season, and you just never can underestimate a team like that.
Well, in the past, they hadn't even been competitive, and so you mentioned Antonio Davis, their head coach. He has done a great job, and really has not had the resources to work with that most people are used to. So hats off to Antonio, and he's got some players there. Also for Kentucky State, before we get to some more IPFW finals, Yolandra Jones is about 6'1" center. Looked a little awkward out there, but she was very, very effective. She could block shots. She can score. She had 20 points. She had 16 rebounds, and the majority of the game she was out because she was in foul trouble.
Right.
So a very talented player. She might get some all-conference consideration. And anyway, back to IPFW, you know, with Lindy scoring 39 points, you think that she pretty much just dominated the show, but she really didn't. They were points that came in spurts, and then, you know, in the end with fouls and whatnot, she got up there. But Leah Sheets, another very impressive game, 12 points, 6 rebounds, had a couple of assists. And for Leah, she had two turnovers, which has really been an Achilles heel, and it seems like she's starting to get a better handle on that.
Right. She's doing a little bit better as the years gone on. I still think that she travels a lot. The officials miss it. And she just got some real quick feet. But I think that's one of the real main things that she needs to work on over the summer is catching the ball and putting it down a lot quicker. I think part of it is that she gets stuck on the left side a lot on the break. And she's not as comfortable with her left hand yet. And, you know, for a freshman, she's just done a phenomenal job.
Jenny Newhart also, another solid game. Struggled a little bit shooting in the beginning, but then picked it up at the end. She had 12 points, 7 rebounds, three block shots, and also 3 assists. So it was another good game for Jenny. And then rounding out the double-figure scores for IPFW, Wendy Recker had 12 points, 9 assists, starting to pick up her assists again. And quite honestly, most of those were probably to Lindy at the top of the key for a three-pointer or that drive or whatever. So, but Wendy really starting to recover, play much better, and her turnovers were also down. And then Tara Mazzillo came off the bench this game and had 10 points, 6 rebounds, 23 minutes. Just another solid game for her.
Yeah.
So now let's move on, Coach, to the Bellarmine game, and we'll try to cover this here pretty quick in the second segment, and then talk about the season just in general. And we've got about 4 minutes to do that. So again, we talked there earlier. It was a last-second shot that beat you, and Bellarmine's the kind of team. They made it to the Final 8 last year, the Elite 8, I guess we'll call it. And this year they've had, it's been up and down. They lost a lot early because they had basically a brand new team. But you know, once those girls got a hold of Charlie Just's system, they ended up winning, I believe, 11 out of their last 12 games. And we ran into them in that stretch.
Right. Yeah, Charlie does a great job with his kids, and you know, he's missing 2 players, and very talented players at that. And they are just going to be one tough team next year. You know, I almost hate to play them, but I think our kids rose to the occasion. They played a good game. I was really hoping we could just finally get where we could just knock them off, and you know, we came real close to that. And you know, they just did what they needed to do at the end, and we knew what they were going to do. We knew they were going to run a back screen, and we just didn't recover quick enough on the switch. And you know, you can go second guess yourself, well, I could have done this or we could have done that. And, you know, if we'd have done what we did right, you know, and the switch would have happened and we would have seen the ball and everything right away, then maybe they wouldn't have scored, or, you know, maybe we could have gone to a zone like we were talking before and things like that. But, I mean, we just have to go with what we do best. And mostly during the year, we've done a good job switching, so that's what we went with. And, you know, we just came up a little short. We had a good attempt at the end. We had 1 second left on the clock. Jenny Newhart threw it down about three-quarter court to Leah Sheets. And we were hoping for the foul. We didn't get that. And we had a good shot at the basket. It just was a couple inches off. So, I mean, it was a good try. Mm-hmm. So I think earlier in the season, we wouldn't have done some of those things at the end, I guess, as well as we did, even though we came up short.
And again, Bellarmine, a team that, you know, had they been at this point for most of the season at the level that they're playing at now, would have definitely been a nationally ranked team. And I think that's a great reflection on you, and actually a great reflection on our conference,
right?
Which we'll talk about a little bit later. Just about all the talent in this conference is returning next year. IPFW, as good as we are, will probably be in the preseason polls, probably around the middle. Right. Just because we got good and went down toward the end. Everybody else has got everybody back, and we have 3 teams going to the NCAA tournament, so this is going to be quite a year. But anyway, the Bellarmine final was 82-81, and again, Lindy Jones got GLBC Player of the Week, and that means she had another great game. She had 24 points, hit 5 more three-pointers, 5 for 10, 50% from three-point land. You almost want her to stay consistent out there and stay there. She was 5 of 6 from the line, had 5 assists, 2 steals, block shot. Another fine all-around game for her. Also, real quick before the break, we'll get you the other scores. Jenny Newhart had another fine game, 15 points, 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 5 block shots. And other double figures was Wendy Recker. Started off hot, cooled down, and then she started dishing the ball out. 10 more assists for Wendy, and she also had a steal. And Tara Mazzillo, 12 points, 6 rebounds before fouling out. And Leah Sheets, 11 points and 8 rebounds. So you got the production, and but you know, Bellarmine also, they had another great game. 17 points from Molly Niehaus. She had 10 rebounds, and of course she had 15 points prior to the shocker at the end. Niehaus did hit the shot, and just quite a game for her. Anyway, we'll be back in just a few moments with more. Welcome back to the Pam Bowden Show. Of course, this is our last segment of the year, and before we go any further, we want to thank Greg Schmitz here at Channel 6 for all of his help throughout the year and bringing us the coaches' shows, not only the Pam Bowden Show, but the Andy Piazza Show, which is on a half hour prior to this, except for this week. So, again, then Bernie Lohmuller here at Channel 6, Becky Mark, Big Dave, who's been coming out. We want to thank you all, and we look forward to seeing you next year. But let's talk about next year, Coach. It's going to be a good season. You can feel that. You know that there's going to be improvement made, and probably have a few new players in here with a recruiting year, which this is actually the time of the year that the people don't see, but it's where all the preparation goes. I mean, coaching actually doesn't just take place from November to to February anymore, does it?
No, it doesn't. In fact, it probably will go through about the beginning of July, and then it'll be on to next year. So it doesn't really stop. Even, you know, we're on 10-month contracts. That doesn't even really matter anymore these days. It may take you 12 months to get the job done. If that's what it takes, that's what you have to do. But for us right now, mainly because we have a better idea of where we're at with as far as scholarship money and as far as you know, the positions that we need to you know, back up in that for the next year and 2 years. You know, we really need to, you know, try to bring in about 3 players, and then hopefully we can get a couple good walk-ons maybe from the area that, you know, would like to participate in our program. And there are some good kids out there, I think, that can really make a difference. Unfortunately, I wish we could scholarship them all, but just the way things are in Division II, I mean, we're only allowed 10, and you know, so if you're up to 15 players, it means there's about 5 kids that probably don't get very much money or don't get any. So hopefully we can get some good kids in the program that want to work hard and can play our style of game, and really try to make the next step for next year. And instead of having so many close games, better our record and be in the top 3, hopefully, in the conference, and you know, go to the playoffs. That's really, you know, where I think we can go. It's just a matter of, you know, how hard we work and what gets done as far as what the kids do during the summer and what kind of kids we bring in for next year.
Well, the conference is it's going to be very deep next year.
Sure is.
Probably hurt the most because of graduation would be St. Joseph's. They're going to lose Hissong.
Right.
Lori Hissong, she's from this area actually, from Harlan, went to Woodland High School, and had a great season this year. She's going to probably be all conference and maybe all region. And they lose her, but then you look at Indianapolis, they return the bulk of their team.
Right.
Southern Indiana returns the bulk of their team. Of course, there's 2 nationally ranked teams. So they're going to probably be 2 of the preseason picks. Northern Kentucky probably loses a couple. They're probably not going to be quite there, but then, you know, St. Joseph's is still going to be coming in somewhere right in there behind. And then you got to look at IPFW from there. So probably a 3-4 in the preseason, which is actually some pretty good incentive. You're not pumping up egos too much, but you also got plenty of room to grow.
Right, and I think we do have a lot of room to grow, and you know, the kids have made a great adjustment to the fast-paced game. You know, having a little bit more flexibility, shooting a 3, and you know, hopefully, you know, like a Tara Missoula can just increase her, you know, range as a post player, being able to shoot that, and that can add to our fast break with the transition into our offense. I think where we can go more of a 4-out, 1-in, like the Bellarmins and the teams like that, which can add, I think, just a tremendous amount to our program next year. So, you know, we're just hoping to add, you know, and really work hard and really, you know, look forward to a very successful year next year.
I think the bottom line is you have some girls that have just improved tremendously this season. So in that respect, it was a 100% success this year. And probably one of the greatest improvements has been in your top player, Lindy Jones. She's definitely been named. We know she's going to get all region. She's got some All-American possibilities. And she averaged 22.5 points, and her 607 points, a lot of people don't realize, that's the 2nd highest total ever. And that's not too far behind Lisa Miller, who was a fine All-American. She went to Bishop Dwenger here in Fort Wayne. And that's getting up there, but Lindy also had a supporting cast in double figures. Jenny Newhart finishes the year at 13.8 points and 7.2 rebounds, and that's after a very slow start to the season for Jenny, so she continually picked it up. And Jenny also became the school's all-time leading block shot getter. She had 8 last weekend, so it's been a super year for her. And also finishing in double figures, Leah Sheets averages 11.3 on the season, and Wendy Recker 10.7, Dottie Porch right behind there at 8.6, Tara Mazzillo at 8.4. You got a very solid core coming back next year.
We sure do, and hopefully we can just add a couple more people to just make us a little bit deeper. You know, I'm hoping that we can get to about 10 kids so that we can really run and press next year. I'd really like to add the pressing game so that we can really just put some pressure on people. And you know, this year we sat back, and it's amazing sometimes that we can score the amount of points that we did playing like a half-court, fast break kind of game, but not really having the the up-court pressure and forcing teams to, just spit the ball up and things like that.
So also, quite a contributor this year, and especially down here near the end, giving you some quality minutes was Barb Daring.
Right.
Much improved. And if you look at most improved on the team, and I know you weren't here last year, but you got to look at Tara Mazzillo, who
Right.
barely got off the bench last year. And she comes in, really has a super year this year, really starting to fulfill her potential. And so you got to look at her as that kind of player that is a late bloomer
Right.
and will continually get better. And Barb Daring, I know they're best friends off the court, and I think they've actually both from last year gained confidence, and I think the ability is getting there. Actually, Barb came in and she rarely missed a shot when she would come in. Now she's getting 4 or 6 points a game, down
Right.
near the end, but it was very solid.
Yeah, we really need those two kids to just really concentrate on what they need to improve on over the summer, and not come in a couple steps behind everybody, but to be right at the starting level that we need them at for next year. And I think those kids, like you say, Tara, I really believe that Tara Mazzillo just has no idea of the potential she has. She's a 6'2" kid that can ball handle, that can pass. She can shoot quite a distance out, and she can drive with the ball. I'm just really hoping that she can just gain the confidence to really become that kind of player that we need down the road.
Actually, it would be scary if she was able to develop a 3-point shot.
Sure would be.
Yeah, it'd be real scary. I think it'd be scary because you didn't necessarily want her to take it. She took it. She makes it. Let's come back to it some more. You're thinking you're too big, but anyway, boy, that would be something. Coach, thanks for the year.
Thanks a lot, Matt. I appreciate your help.
It's been great, and congratulations. 16-11.
Thanks.
Room for improvement next year, but still a pretty nice season for you.
Sure was.
Well, for Coach Pam Bowden, I'm your host, Matt DeLone. Thanks for joining us this year. We'll see you again next year.